This is the Bonus Section Podcast, episode number 98. Have your perceptions challenged. Are you the type of person that knows you were meant for something greater in this lifetime and that somewhere inside of you, there's just this bigger version of yourself trying to break through, but in spite of all that self-development, personal development, you just can't seem to find the way up there towards those goals? Hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Bonus Section and the host of this podcast. And I'm a person just like you trying to live the most fulfilling life possible. Now, to help you take immediate action to get moving in the right direction or a better direction for that matter, we take all the notes from each episode and we post them for a short period of time at freethinkingtools.com. All right, let's get started. In this episode, I want to talk about an interesting subject. Have your perceptions challenged? It's a directive. It's something I say to myself all the time. There's a very easy story or a quip or a line that says, you don't know what you don't know. And that's a real humbling statement. If you'll just hang on to that for something, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's humbling because now you feel dumb. You get awakened. You're conscious that there's a lot that you just don't know anything about. And that's fine. That's duh. That's all of us. I mean, you can be a savant at one thing and absolutely clueless about another because there's so much knowledge out there that no one human being is a master of all. So that's pretty easy to recognize you don't know what you don't know. But let's get into what that does about humility. That's my first point here, is that humility, I was listening to this definition. I'm trying to give it my own little spin here. Humility is the recognition that other people know more than you do. That's where it starts. We're human. So in isolation, you could get arrogant and you could think you know it all, or you could get downright depressed and think you know nothing. But when you get into a group in any setting, whether it's digital, physical, whatever it might be, you recognize other smart people because you hear them talk about something in detail that you know nothing about. And that could be humbling. I mean, I was with somebody the other day with one of my boys, and we were at a school and we were walking around, and this person knew an enormous amount of detail about a subject and went on for the first 25 minutes and almost felt bad themselves that they were talking at us. And I just kept asking more questions, because I was humbled in a positive way. I didn't feel bad about it. I was intrigued. Well, my gosh, you know so much about this. In fact, I said, you should write a book. I mean, the detail that you know, get this out of your head and get it onto a book. And that's what humility really is. Humility to me, well, in this context anyway, right? And humility is a big concept. Humbling yourself to a lot of different scenarios, people, things, etc. But in this case, it's more intellectual, academic. That's the way I'm talking about it in this podcast today. So just meeting these other people that know more than you do says a lot about the environment you put yourself in. You might hear that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. And a lot of people say that online in the context of money making. That's what we talk about, right? How about getting really interested in something first and doing that for your passion? And the money will follow that, I'll guarantee you. But I do agree that you will be who you hang around with and what they do to challenge you. I mean, if you are the dominant player in the group of people that you hang around with and nobody's challenging you, well, you're certainly not growing. You're contracting. And so are they. You're not putting them down by saying you're the smartest person in the room. You're just simply saying there's no challenge going on here. You might not be the smartest one at all. There might be somebody else that's so timid that they won't even voice their opinion. They just keep going backwards faster than you do. So the idea is to seek this all out, right? And that's the next point here. Curiosity. So once you recognize that, then you become curious. I mean, again, if you see this as a positive conversation, you go from being humbled by smart people and what they know to being curious. And that's what happened to me the other day. I was just very curious. And it was a motivation to go seek that unknown and learn more. So that's why I was saying in that conversation, it was a trigger. My recognition of bright people who are smart on a subject. In fact, I'm thinking just 2 hours ago that happened in the context of music. So one was about a sport and its history. Another one was about music and what's possible in teaching people to learn how to play instruments. And it's like a trigger for me. And again, because I spend an enormity of time teaching, coaching, and you have to be a great learner if you're going to be good at either one of those things. So I just went full bore and kept asking questions, asking questions, and not for the sake of asking questions. I remember good old Antonio back in grade school. Oh, sir, right? That's an interruption. But I was curious. I would ask a provocative question, almost like a therapeutic question to get that person to read more of their mind aloud to me, like an audiobook. Right? People can be the most incredible audiobooks if you'll ask a good, solid question about what you're actually curious about, and then you shut up and actually listen to what they're actually saying. It's an incredible way to learn more. Really is. And again, you can do it online without being the provocateur. I think that's why big podcasts like Joe Rogan and others that ask good questions of good guests, and we get to hear and learn. And there's that kinesthetic. I mean, I know we're not in the room with them. That would be the ultimate kinesthetic experience, but it's like that in a video on YouTube like this. In fact, somebody challenged me to do some interviews for my podcast, and I'm seriously considering doing that next when I have a subject like this, to go seek and search who is an expert. You know, some of them are just so celebritized at this point in time, you can't get people to sit still. But my gosh, it doesn't need to be a celebritized smart person on a subject. They're everywhere. Hear me say that. They are everywhere. Just go into any group online, go to an academic institution that runs lectures for free and watch the people debating in the room. Look at the up and coming students and have conversations. People are amazing. They really are. And learning is so accelerated now that people younger and younger are just learning things at such rapid speed that they don't have to be seasoned life veterans, although that's nice too, because, you know, veterans like us, we get beaten up by life and we have a different perspective on what humility actually can be, right? Beyond academic humility. But curiosity, use that as the motivation to seek that unknown that you don't know. Now, take a little bit of a right turn on this point here. You're learning, okay, that all of this that you're learning from, say, somebody else. In these contexts, I gave you this example. Your learning will actually cause new biases. So in other words, you knew very little about the history of ice hockey at a particular school and in general. And then you knew very little about how to teach somebody to learn an instrument, or actually music pieces, it turns out he was talking about. So I walk away from these conversations that both probably I was involved in for about 45 minutes to an hour. So it's a small chunk, fascinating, interesting, and opens up my mind, but I only caught a sliver of what they know. So I walk away different, knowing a little bit more than I did before, but now I have this new bias about hockey. A game I've loved and looked at for years, but never really from a historical perspective. I mean, once upon a time, maybe I indulged a little bit of it online, but never really wasn't that interested in it. So I never really indulged. So now I go away with a new perspective and a couple good anecdotal stories, and I'm biased. And so I have to be careful to remember that that's only a little piece, right? Because these new biases are also new blind spots. And the worst part is, if we take the insecurity, and this is intellectual insecurity, let's say we learn a little bit, then we go online and we watch a couple of videos, maybe we even read a book, okay? So now we get a little bit more arrogance based on our intellectual insecurity, and we start to act as if we are know-it-alls about these subjects. And that's just intellectual insecurity. And what we do is we become blind to the rest of the story or the rest of the pursuit, which can be endless, right? Your pursuit of distinctions really is infinite on any subject. There's no such thing really in most cases. I'm saying in absolutes, so I'll be careful. I don't like to speak in absolutes. But in most subjects, it just seems like there is an endless array of small, tiny details in learning that you can pursue. But it's too much for the brain, right? So what the brain does, the animal brain, it biases things. I'm actually listening to Carl Jung's book, on audio about men and his symbols, man and his symbols, right? So this is, I think, the exact title of the book. I just started listening to it an hour ago. And I think what's interesting about that is that there is so much that we don't understand and don't comprehend that we take it in almost as a symbol or a general idea. And it causes this new perspective, right? So we have this new perspective based on this limited idea that we can't really fully comprehend. So somehow the brain chunks it up into this thing, and we have a new lens through which we see that subject or the world in its entirety. And that's the dangerous spot. Because now we want to be smarter. We want to sound smarter. We want to make an impression. Maybe we want to influence. And we begin to talk as if we are well-knowledged, right? That we're learned people in that subject. And now we start to look only for the corroborating evidence when we get challenged as to why we're right. That's a law. Robert Cialdini's book is behind me. I refer to it often. These simple laws of human behavior, of psychology, we want to think that we have such free will in the way that we think and behave. It's so complex. The subconscious mind is so complex in the way that it guides us in trying to pull what actually happens there up to the conscious. Now throw in dreams and wires our brain, taking all of these random ideas and working them through. It's a pretty complex place between your ears, right? What's that about? 5 inches, 6 inches, depending how fat or narrow your head is, right? Mine's narrow, so I don't know, maybe I'm 5 inches across, 4.5. But the point is, it's pretty complex in there, right? And there's a lot happening. So in order to not implode, or explode for that matter, with too much information or meltdown. That's why a lot of people in the limited study I've done on when people feel so exasperated that they see there's no way out, that's when they begin to have these suicidal thoughts. They feel so exasperated by all this knowledge. So the brain has a way to protect against that and just chunk it up and simplify it and create some blind spots in that process. And then, so as to not burn a lot more calories, the animal brain says, hey, when somebody challenges you, let's just protect this perspective. This is good enough. And you're in a tough spot there. See where I'm going? All of a sudden, you're the know-it-all on a subject. And so it's tricky. So here's the bonus section of the podcast today, is that what you really need to do is seek. Okay, so I talked about earlier that your curiosity would motivate you to go learn more. But now that you've learned more and you have to chunk it up into these pockets of better and more knowledge than you had before, but not enough, you should seek active debate around that subject, And again, if it's important to you. If not, you can just easily defer to somebody. Oh, once upon a time, I met somebody who was a real history buff on hockey. It was really fascinating. One thing I remember is that he said this. Okay? So you don't have to go and try to get into an active discussion as if you're an expert. You can just lay off to the little anecdotal thing that happened for that 1 hour. Oh yeah, I was listening to this guy about music, and he left off explaining to me what MIDI was. I'd always seen that word, but I never knew what it really was. And I can't remember what he said. What does that mean again? Now the next person explains it. But when you're locked into something that you went and learned because you needed to know it, because you needed a skill set, it's really good to seek active debate with people of dissenting opinions and consider their perspective relative to yours to seek the truth. So there's a fascinating concept, right? We can listen to people, we can learn from them, we can do further study, but is it really the truth about a subject? We don't really know, do we? Because what is the truth? What is the absolute at the end of this pursuit of knowledge? And again, I could go way down that rabbit hole. I won't. I'll just let it linger out there because this is all about thinking, this podcast, right? I'm thinking aloud to provoke you to think aloud, right? That's the point here, is that you really, really, when you get into a subject that you are interested in or you need to know because that's the way you make your living, you want to seek the active debate of these people with dissenting opinions. Healthy debate is a really good thing. In fact, it's the part of the process. If people are open to debate, great debaters will really listen to what the other side says to fully hear the perspective of that person. Now, if they're trying to win the debate, they might look for the weakness in the argument and come back and poke holes at the weakness. Now, the real smart competitor is going to acknowledge all of the things that they agree with first, right? I sound like Sun Tzu, the art of war, right? So you come in there and you look at all the great things they say, you acknowledge it, you say, but I don't like your perspective on this because I learned this fact. Can you dispute this fact? Right? Now, that's a tricky thing because you have to be really learned to have found the truth of a fact. I don't know, maybe math gives you some real concrete facts. A lot of the other stuff that we would talk about, say philosophy, psychologically, biologically, might start to get to some fact of the way things work. But there's always a vulnerability in that hard absolute. But you get the point. It's that argument, that debate that is healthy because it's questioning the way that we assimilated the information, the way that we see the world, because there can be some harmful misperceptions. In the context of my own business, what I did was I sought the truth about the way that properties get sold. I'm in the real estate business and have been for over 23 years now, and I've coached it for at least 17 now. So I have to always seek the truth of the way something works because I'm accountable to this body of work and these people that are interested in challenging me and themselves to see if that leads to a very specific result, which is the sale of a property, right? Very simple business, right? When you think about it, very complex from the people point, but really something either works to sell a property or it doesn't. Practice either makes you a better violin player, practicing a certain way, or it doesn't. So these are certain things, and I know it didn't work for you that way. I know that's all the BS. That's what I'm saying. That's the corroborating evidence. That's the way you talk when you have a blind spot, right? All of that stuff. Oh, it didn't work for me. Oh, that doesn't work for me, right? It didn't work that way for me. All right, well, I see as a coach many times over when people say that didn't actually try to go through thoroughly the way it was suggested by people with dissenting opinions. So just be cautious. That's an example or several examples, quite frankly. Stop fighting all of this stuff, especially when you get a dissenting opinion. The best thing is to bite your tongue, listen, and even if you disagree later, take it away with you. Chop it around. Get a yellow pad of paper like I do right next to me with a pen, and I just chop these ideas around. Get them out of my head. I call it catching fireflies. Get them out of your head. Catch them. When it lights up, boom, pull it through your arm, down onto the paper, into the jar, right? Catch those fireflies. It's interesting stuff. And effective. Let me go back and summarize this. It's a little more difficult, a little more challenging, not such a straightforward subject, but it's simple in its core message. Have your perceptions challenged. I mean, the way you perceive anything, have it questioned by other people. You can do it yourself too by listening to things online, but debate, like real human back and forth. Have people that you respect or people that are in that way of life and that expertise, have them challenge what you believe. And the several points here were, one, know that humility is the recognition that other people know more than you do. That's why you're going to want to seek them out. They do know more than you do about a subject. So humility is recognizing that. The second part, though, is that humility can spark the curiosity, which is the motivation then to go seek the unknown and learn more. So if you know those smart people and you're listening from afar, then you get curious, and that's motivation to go seek them, see how they go together. And then third, you're learning as you listen to them is ironically good, but then it's going to cause new biases and new blind spots that you might start to run away from when they're challenged. So the bonus section is to seek active debate with people of dissenting opinions and consider their perspective relative to yours. So they say one thing, you say another. And that way you can start to see somewhere amongst all of it is the truth that you're really seeking. I will summarize it this way, folks. The greatest trap in life intellectually is to learn something new and then narrow your understanding of that subject into digestible pieces. This affects your current perspective of the subject and becomes your biased opinion, not necessarily the truth. Therefore, it's critical to be curious and stay constantly in pursuit of conversation and debate with people of dissenting opinions so that you see more clearly where your own blind spots really are. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get moving in the right direction towards your goals because we take all of the notes from each episode and we post them at freethinkingtools.com for a short period of time and give you instant access. Also, don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it syndicates and you listen. We also post our content on YouTube. We'd love you to join us over there. So don't forget to subscribe to the bonus section channel. And we'd love to see you over there too. We'd love more subscribers. And maybe we'll create a little extra deep dive bonus material over there, some lives. I'm looking forward to figuring this all out and take you a little bit deeper on this journey if you want to be. We'd also appreciate it, of course, if you would join our mission of becoming people for others. That is what drives this podcast, and share this content with other people just like you. I would appreciate that, and I'm sure they would too if they need this kind of help. But remember this, nobody's coming for you. Nobody. So go get to work on yourself and a better plan for your goals, and we'll see you in the next episode to help you do just that. Thanks.